I'm going to open the meeting and welcome everyone, and sorry about the late start. We were waiting for a quorum, which we now have. So welcome to the legal meeting on the 8th of March. Would someone confirm the minutes of the last meeting?
I do.
Councillor Martin, Councillor Drummond, all in favour?
Yeah.
Yes, good, that's passed. So we'll go. So, are you indicating we should bring that matter that I want to talk about forward?
Mayor, I am indicating we should bring that matter forward, and we should go into confidential session to allow discussion while General Counsel is available. Good. Would you like to move that we close the meeting? We've done the minutes, haven't we? And then we go to 3.1, the Sydney North Planning Panel membership nomination. Now, can I just ask a question? So Michael Raymond and Veronique Marchandale aren't on there anymore, are they?
No.
No, they're gone. Yeah. So we're just talking about Kenneth Robinson and Virginia Waller.
Couple of alternates, Councillor Barber and Kevin Elker.
And Kevin Elker, that's okay.
Moving them out a little bit further, we would have done this with the new council.
Yeah,
Realignment. There's a few doings and froings of the Department of Planning, aligning representations. We just get caught out by the extension to the local government the councillor period. So that's a pretty simple extension, and we'll do an LOI again early next year.
What I would have liked to know, and maybe we can pursue this in the next council, I would have liked the voting records of Kenneth Robinson and Virginia Waller, so I can see. There was some.
Annual report.
Didn't go into how they had voted on particular items, because I think if we are selecting independent people to go on the panel, we should actually be following up on how they vote on issues that are important to our community to see if we think we've picked the right people.
If we nominate people because they're independent, should we actually be supervising or checking how they're voting?
Well, if they're not voting...
Well, the recording patterns are public. It's not, the information itself is not difficult. The requirements for selection are qualifications and experience.
Yeah.
At that point, the decision is theirs once they're well informed.
We should let go of it at that point, otherwise.
Well, it depends on how you interpret the Mayor's comments. The information is available. It can be done. In a general sense, I'm really happy when I talked to 3.3 around how the determinations are being made.
Julie, one of the problems, if we ask for how they voted, that people always argue that they had the benefit of all of the evidence before them and got a very superficial understanding. So it puts us in a judging the judges. It's a bit dangerous.
I was just thinking, for example, if these people were, if council's advice was to refuse an application and they were consistently voting to approve an application that our council wants rejected, then we might want to rethink if we'll pick the right people. Because I don't know where either of these.
I can talk a little bit more of that on 3.3.
I'm just using it. It's something I want to, I'm
also mindful of that exact issue as the head policymaker, if you like.
Yeah.
With the policymaking team and the assessment team. Not seeing anything that spooks my interest around random decisions that either panel are running.
That's set aside.
I can pick on a few years, but really,
okay. So
I'm not jumping up and down about the representation.
That answers my question very fully.
We're probably interested in unusual or unexpected outcomes.
That's what I'm interested in, because it'd be pretty weird if our officers are spending all this time behind the scenes writing reports to try to have some development refused, and we have a couple of people that we're paying as expert.
Historically, the only ones that has happened for are for those higher order uses like childcare and aged care at the panel level, and you've had a couple of involvements in that respect. They're the ones that move away from strict policy interpretation, which day in, day out fall into line with residential commercial.
Yep.
A couple of those other uses tend to get slightly different when you know how complex they are.
Yep. Yeah.
Outcome.
That explains it very fully. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Are there other questions, or should we have a mover and a seconder for 3.1? Moved by councillor Martin, seconded by councillor Brody. All in favour? Yep.
Okay,
You can eat dinner, it's no one. Do you need to warm it up? That's 3.1. 3.2, build to rent planning regime.
I'll get Mr. Boyd to talk to this one, please.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
So for a long time, the state government and the federal government have been struggling to do with housing affordability, especially the social housing aspect, because they haven't been delivering that amount of housing to cater for the long waiting lists that they have. In 2018, the New South Wales state government pledges to commit to improving those the supply of social housing, especially in the build to rent sector, which is largely driven by the private sector. So in mid last year, legislative changes were made to the land tax regime where if a build to rent development gets provided, you can get 50% discount off your land tax. And that applies for as long as the build to rent is there. And it's usually a minimum of 15 years to do that. So it's a huge incentive to get the private market to get into this style of development. And late last year, the state government released the draft housing diversity SEP, which essentially looked at combining a number of housing SEPs together. But in the interim, they have started to release bits and pieces of that without any documentation in behind it all. I did request from the department to try and get some understanding as to why these things were released as early as they were and whether we could get access to that. And the answer was essentially no. All that documentation will be released at the end of the implementation of this particular SEP. The last stage, which is yet to come, which I understand is meant to happen sort of late March, early April. So at that time, we may get some better understanding as to why they're doing what they are doing.
So you're flying blind a bit at the moment.
A little. So in February this year, they amended the affordable rental housing SEP to allow this build to rent to occur a lot more than, make it a little bit easier to do. But generally, council staff support this approach. We wholly support social housing delivery. But the way that the state government want to do it, we're a bit perplexed with. Now, they've generally made it permissible anywhere where flats can be permitted, multi-dwelling housing and shop top housing. No problem with that. The big issue we have is the mandating it as a permissible use in the B3 zone, which is the commercial core. So the St Leonard's, the North Sydney CBD, we have a large core of what we call commercial core. And there's a little tiny area up in St Leonard's and Crow's Nest. Now, that currently prohibits residential development. And this is a long-standing policy council has had to prevent residential development happening in our core so we can meet the state government's employment targets. Yeah. Now, by introducing this, it severely undermines our ability to try and deliver those employment targets. And I know COVID's changed the world in what may happen, but this is a short period of time that this thing's happened in, and we don't know what those long-term goals for employment are going to be. There's probably a lot of research that needs to be done at the back end of that. So what I suggest is that council endorses a submission off to the minister and reinforce our position, which we had made in relation to the draft housing diversity SEP, which was released late last year. We didn't make a submission in relation to this, and they still haven't turned around to allow or to try and stop this. The major concern for us is that once it's in and it won't go away.
That's
so
right.
you allow residential.
An ad hoc approach, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah,
correct. So with things like introducing residential, nothing's going to stop a proponent down the track saying, I'll lodge a planning proposal to make it permissible forever. And so you remove that ability, despite the fact the state government has tried to introduce some criteria to essentially prevent it from being subdivided, designed so it can be reverted back to commercial floor space. But the reality is once it's residential, it's extremely hard to get it to go back the other way. So yes, I just think we need to reinforce back to them that we need to maintain that prohibition within the commercial core areas. And it's also undermining a huge amount of work that we've been probably started back in about 2013 to reinforce our commercial centres. So
I've got no trouble supporting it, but
no,
sort of ad hoc that's coming out of the government is just dangerous. I don't always agree with the planning proposal, but at least they come out of a deliberative process.
This is quite dangerous. The department have just funded us to the tune of $2.5 million to do LEP review, LSP, strategic planning, local housing contributions plan, all on the premise of being holistic and strategic. The place is going absolutely fine assessment-wise. This comes in, and it really does create a lot of problems. And right now we're still doing fine commercially, commercial demand, because we have the metro there, the metro attraction and access point, which is great. But as soon as it flicks, it could really turn. So the incentive on land tax alone is quite nice. So that's quite concerning. Yep. And we're not alone. There's a lot of other councils and industry bodies really concerned.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
I don't think you've got any opposition.
Do I have a mover and a seconder then?
I'll move it.
Moved by councillor Martin, seconded by councillor Brodie. All in favour? That's unanimous. 3.3, this is the North Sydney Local Planning Panel Annual Report.
Okay, I touched on a little bit of the concerns here before, Madam Mayor. We are required to do this report, so hopefully it will read pretty similar every year with a couple of changes in numbers for attendees. Policy-wise and implementation, I think we're very fortunate that we have Ms. Jan Morrell as the main chair and a couple of other experienced panel members, which we wouldn't want to let go when the next process goes through. They give not only they give very good application of our current controls, but they also give pretty good feedback. So where there are points of disagreement, there is a nice professional level of discussion to get through. They're very accommodating of the applicants as well. Much like you see in chamber, where people do get the chance to speak a little bit longer than usual, not the worst thing, work through it. And that's what Ms. Morrell does very, very well along the rest of the panel. So there's some numbers at the back there regarding recommendation versus determination with 90%. And the 10% that you largely think most of those are in line with council staff. There'll be a few gremlins in there, but there are not many, certainly not many make me twitch.
But you're not highlighting any concerns we should have?
No, I'm not at all. It'll be about retaining a good panel set next time around. Panels are the way to go, and just getting
I think
consistency in the group.
Pretty well now,
Important.
And I think Jan Morrell she's fabulous, isn't she?
I think she's very good.
She's such a good chair. And if you read through here, there's only a few instances where they voted contrary to our recommendation. No, there's no more questions. Can I have a mover? Moved by councillor Keane.
I'm happy to move.
Seconded by councillor Drummond. All in favour? Yes, that's unanimous. We go to 3.4, and this is the development application.
So some summary statistics for October to December last year, in which time we received 150 for the quarter. So post-COVID, but certainly post the main part of COVID, sort of starting to get back up to our normal numbers.
Seeing any change in the style of developments coming through?
Not anymore. There's a period of 5 or 6 weeks where it definitely changed. Numbers dropped off, and then ramping back up, it was much more same numbers as dads, but the alts and ads.
Yeah.
And now we're just back into normal stuff.
Okay, so that's pretty well.
That was a very short-lived hiatus, if you want. And so the numbers are very good. The turnaround time's 69 days on this 3-month one. The 3.5 was a processing time of 71 days on a similar workload. The overlay to that is our Public Spaces Legacy Program, the one where we've actually got to meet some timeframes to get some funding around public open space. The last monthly statistics into the department had our median time frame down at 52 days.
Oh, okay.
Since September, which is a phenomenal number. And as an aside, I'm not getting too many complaints through yourselves. So clearly it's working on both fronts, not only assessment side, but the number of things that float through to yourselves. If you're holding them back, thank you. But on the whole,
no,
it's
I think it's a pretty good result. And do you think we're on track to, how much are we going to get if we?
We're on track, 4.75 million, up to 4.75.
Oh, so that's if we have, what percentage did we have to make an improvement by?
It was around 15%, 71 to 62
If we go
days.
15% faster in our DA applications.
71 to 62, and we're at 52.
Good.
And that's a fair way through that period.
Good, and we get 4 point.
We can apply for up to 4.75 million, which
Wonderful little
That's an
incentive, isn't it?
incentive, yeah.
What are we going to do with that money? Or
Mr. Emerson can answer that.
has that been spent yet? Has Rob already spent it before we?
We're recording, so I'll wait for Mr. Emerson.
But it's a credit to your team.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Look, they've owned the process.
Oh yeah, it's great because that's a lot of money.
When we put it to council, we're concerned about some blowback.
Yeah.
No. It hasn't really transpired now.
That's quite a lot. That's a lot of money to get. If we can put that towards a small project.
Yeah, Mr. Emerson and Kate Bambrick Brown had that in hand.
Okay, super.
That's both probably 3.4 and 3.5 if you want.
Okay, would someone move those two on
I
Globo?
do.
Moved on Globo by councillor Martin, seconded by councillor Brody. All in favour? And that's unanimous. 3.6, if there's no discussion, will we have a mover?
3.6 and 3.0 are the same quarterly
Yeah,
variations
I
where
couldn't see
funny
anything.
little gremlins gets put up to.
I couldn't see anything
Okay.
terribly.
And you're not drawing our attention to anything unusual.
No, I'm not. We have asked for further delegations and continue to do so for stuff that really shouldn't be going to a panel in and around existing building height breaches and terraces and the like. So we'll hopefully get more traction on that, make that even shorter.
Well, would someone move on Globo 3.6 and 3.7? Because 3.8 we've done. Yeah, so moved on Globo by councillor Martin, seconded by councillor Keane, who just switched her hair, which meant she was second. This
No, I didn't
motion-
second it.
It's
I didn't second it.
unanimous. Are you happy to second it?
Yeah.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Done. Close the meeting because we've got our staff pacing up and down outside to do a briefing.